Listen, I loved what I was doing in MDO Holdings. We had 9 companies that we owned and operated.
Mm-hmm.
I got to run each one. Michael Olander Jr. there gave me a lot of leeway, probably more than he should have. And I loved the groups we were working with. We were mainly in the fitness space, health, wellness, which has always meant a lot to me. So it was fun to work on those brands, and it was great for me to expand my business knowledge. But as you mentioned, I was always a fan.
Mm-hmm.
I was at every playoff game. My daughter is 8. She has become a huge Caniac, right? So it's been fun to kind of have that together. And always kept in touch with Don. Mike Foreman, the guys who were there, John while he was there, always kind of kept in touch, understood what was going on, understood the challenges. And I like what Tom's been doing, from shaking things up, from bringing in new ideas. It is a different world there today than it was 7.5 years ago when I left. So that has all been new. And then, as I kind of talked about a little bit last week, the legacy projects of the development around the arena, the pursuit of Major League Baseball,
Mm-hmm.
when you add those into what's already happening with the Canes and what we're trying to do in the community, it's big and it's fun.
We're going to get to the
I'm sorry,
legacy.
I jumped a lot of things there.
That was the outline, right? But we're going to get to the legacy projects in a second. Doug Warf, president, Carolina Hurricanes. I want to go back to at the very beginning when Tom Dundon came in and was openly talking about, and this is the year before the start, before the team made this now 6-year playoff run. He was openly talking about this has to be a fan experience. Mm-hmm. And this is part of the reason I was so thrilled that you did decide to come back, was because you were there and understood the connection that this franchise had with fans who had largely stayed away because the team wasn't great. And that was the first thing Tom wanted to do, was reconnect fans to the team. Winning helps. And I remember in the second year, the first full season of Tom, and we were sort of in like the January start of the winning streak that got them into the playoffs. And he said to me, well, how long does it take for the fans to come back? And I told him then, I said, in most cases, because Tom was new to professional sports.
Yep.
I said, in most cases, there's a lag time. You'll probably see it next year, depending on what happens this year. I said, but I wouldn't be surprised if you guys are in playoff position if it happened now.
Right.
Because what I knew from the fan base is it took a long time for the fans to go away. And I thought they were dying for any reason to come back. So it did happen. Did any of that surprise you?
No, I think exactly. It's good that you had that advice, right? And he's not the first person to ask that question.
Right.
Because when it used to be that I was VP of marketing, previous Mike Foreman, I like that title, that would come down the hall to us from the hockey ops side. Hey, we won 5 straight games. Why isn't this Friday night better sold? It's like, well, we lost for 5 straight years. So the 5-game winning streak's nice, but it's going to be longer. I think that's what was fun for me to watch, was that you could tell he had an intentionality of making this a fan-first experience, of spending to the cap to put a good team on the ice. And then the way he thought about things were different, and it needed some of that. So I think you're spot on in the way that he looks at things, and I think you're spot on that is a big piece. Our first conversation, I had not talked with Tom much in my time away, my 7.5 years away. And our first conversation, he's kind of going on, hey, here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm needing. I knew by the way he talked about what he looks at, that he gets it, right? He's looking at lines, he's looking at trash pickup, he's looking at fluidity at the doors. That all plays into fan experience. I feel like we did a pretty good job back in the day of connecting the community and the team. And to your point, I think that helped buffer a couple of tough years.
Yeah.
It can't buffer 8 to 9 years of missing the playoffs, right? You bottom out there.
We don't do it anymore, but those hometown nights, where we'd have a local brewery and a local band. Those were stuff that you oversaw, that were great ways to connect to local small businesses and bring people in hey, this band that you have been watching at this spot for however long is going to be playing between periods at PNC Arena. That's connecting to the community.
Totally. And you saw it even when I was there. I mean, I remember going 2003 to Wilmington to do a youth hockey clinic, right? And 4 kids show up. And Matt Horton, a guy I used to work with us, still remembers the 4 kids' names, which is hilarious. And then you go now and you see a cool bar, you see a bar event there where it's packed. You've seen the growth. And that was just years of decades of putting that time in, but nothing heals it like a winning team.
Yeah, and the team has won a lot. Tom, obviously, I think there have been fair criticisms of the way they have gone about it in terms of not adding at deadlines, although this year completely blew up the entire formula. Like, I didn't even recognize, wait a second, 2 free agent signings, and then at the deadline, Jake Gensel and Yevgeny Kuznetsov, neither of which are with the team anymore regardless. So there have been some fair criticisms of some of the things that they have done, but at the bottom line is I look at the results in the standings, and maybe it's entirely about the head coach. It could be like Rod is...
It aligns.
It does, right? But it's really hard to argue with the results because ultimately the Hurricanes have been one of the top, 4 teams in the NHL. Maybe the best team in terms of regular season record over the last 4 years, but certainly one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the entire league since Tom's first full season.
Well, and I think, we were talking about this off air. You've got Rod, which is one piece. And if you look at that Hall of Fame committee that you and I both sit on, you look at Aho, you look at Slavin, you look at Svetch. There's so many key pieces that are there now who will be in that conversation when they retire. That I think that coming up at the same time Rod came in as a coach, them coming into their own, has been a key piece to what the team is today.
Are we any closer to a date for Eric Staal night?
I think we're really close.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Really just if you could ballpark it, is it earlier in the season or later in the season?
I think it'll land sometime in January.
Okay.
And his number was 12, if I remember correctly.
It was 12, so we have room for a 10 is already up.
Yep.
A 12 will go up. Does Justin's 14 go up, or is that on a separate banner of just Hurricanes Hall of Famers?
That's on the Hall of Fame banner.
Okay, so it's not. We have not retired 14 yet.
No.
We'll get to that. Yeah. And then 11. 11, his other number, but also the Staal brother. It's funny. This is about hockey, and I talked to Eric about this last week. Part of me thinks that Eric Staal being traded hurt his brother more than Eric. Eric was then free of the situation. Jordan had to live with it for probably 3 full years. There was still I joked around that when Staal was named captain, nobody would have had a problem with it. They would have said, sure.
Right. If
his last name were Jones.
Yeah.
And not Staal.
You know that better than me. I left shortly after Eric did, so.
Whalers.
Yeah.
That has been, I think, an awesome part of this run. We've done it every year.
Yep.
Is there, it kind of rubs some people the wrong way. It shouldn't. Where do you stand on continuing that, maybe taking it to a different place? What do you think about it?
I'm a big fan. To the people it rubs the wrong way, there's an homage being paid, right? And I think if you lost a team, the fact that there's still a way to see it and tell your kids about it, I think is a neat thing, right? Instead of just looking in archives. So I think it's more of an homage and a hat tip, and I think it's a great piece. I loved it when I was a fan. I mean, right. I started in 2000, so there wasn't a long time of the team being here before I started, but I loved that Whalers piece prior. I understood some timid nature around it in Pete's days. But no, I love embracing it. I think we're always looking at what else we can do with it.
Is there any potential of taking a preseason game? Never take a regular season game to Hartford, but a preseason game to Hartford?
Man, those are great questions, Adam. I always be open to conversation. I don't know where that's. I'm 1 month in, man. Give me at least another month before you start hitting me with those questions.
All right. Let me ask you another question. I think I saw I don't even remember the team, and I think it's even in the NBA that is taking all of their broadcasting away from Diamond Sports, which is Bally, parent company of Bally, in-house. Where are the Hurricanes? We're 2 months away from the start of the season, basically. And for people like me who use the Bally's app,
Yep.
Where are we? I know we have another, like the ESPN, Fox Sports sports streaming service is part of it. Where are we with Bally?
We are big fans of Bally and Diamond Sports Group,
right,
which is the ownership group. They are in their proceedings. I think a big part for them hinges on the NBA.
Okay.
And where they stand with some of their NBA contracts. The nice part for us, we've always been a leader for them. And a lot of that is because our relationship and their relationship with the Braves.
Okay.
So out of all their groups, our group has been a successful group for them. So we know where we stand with them. We appreciate them. We hope they're back. And we are working through that. When you're doing it and you know that they're in bankruptcy protection and they're having constant conversations, we have to do our due diligence and check on other options. So we're running parallel paths, but we all intend to be on Bally's this coming season.
Because I know, again, I wish I remembered which team it is taking all of their games to over the air.
Yeah, there's a couple ways that people are doing it. In Dallas, the Stars announced what they're doing. The Stars are going with the total streaming option. That's all app-based. There are a lot of ways that you can go with this. I think it's a fascinating time for sports due to the carrier rights and some of the fees have been played. I think we're in a phase where the next 2 or 3 years will tell us a lot.
All right, I just have a few more things for you, and I appreciate you coming over here. But I want to get to the legacy projects. I know Dennis is like doing the home run call, which is appropriate since we're going to talk baseball here. But I'm going to take this segment a little longer so we have a few more minutes. So you mentioned baseball, and I've kind of joked about this whole topic because, look, I am a lifelong baseball fan. The last thing I ever want to do.
And a Mets fan at that.
I am a Met. I grew up at Shea Stadium. But the last thing I would ever want to do is completely. I don't want to throw dirt on baseball, even Delaware dirt, which they used to rub up the baseballs, on baseball coming to the Triangle. But everything that I have ever read about the financial, chances of this happening here in North Carolina is, we don't have the personal wealth, the corporate wealth to fully support Major League Baseball, at least at the expense of other things. But Tom is interested, very interested in
highly interested.
Right. Yeah. And I kind of, there was a time I thought he was hedging, but I think he's back all in. How much of it is tied to the development of the arena area? Is that related at all?
I mean, sure, right? Tom might have a thought that he hasn't shared with me. There, on the plans that we have, there's not a baseball park on the arena development. And could you hopefully get one close? Sure. I think that would be great. I don't think that's set in stone, right? So that's a long ways away. I think the key part about this, when I was talking to Tom, you need an owner interested first.
Right.
And the fact that he's there and he's willing to put his capital towards that, that's a huge first step. And I think when you're looking at this, that's going to take us from where we might have been in a top 8 to a top 4, right? And you're still going to have to break through. And a lot of that's going to be what kind of help you get from state, local, et cetera.
Sure.
Where your ballpark's going to go. And then they will do feasibility studies on corporate and season tickets. I think what's nice about baseball occurs different time frame. We know how it works, right? The home stands, the long trips. You see more people travel for baseball than you do for hockey games. And I do think it'll become much more of a regional experience than a triangle experience. That's the way it works, in my opinion. I would agree that there's some hesitancy on, can triangle corporate companies back this enough? Sure, you could have a question about that. I also see the growth that our market's having.
Right.
This is not going to happen tomorrow. Even if you're awarded a team in 2 or 3 years, you're looking at what does this look like 6 or 7 years down the road. I think it probably looks really strong. And I would put us against anybody else who's going to be in that conversation because, to use an old baseball analogy of Beckett in a trading guard guide,
our
arrow is going up, right? And a lot of the other markets are either flat or going down. I feel really good about where our market is.
Also, if you look at just the map of the United States, Washington and Baltimore.
Big gap.
To Atlanta.
Yep.
And if you go west from here, you go for a long way before you get to the next team, right?
And I do
St.
think
Louis.
We've shown with Nashville and others, we can coexist. Would it be a toss-up? It's not going to be us in Charlotte. We know that, right? Much like your beautiful MLS 919 MLS shirts turned out. But I think we've got a better structure in place today. And I think Tom's serious about it. So he's not a guy who sits idle. He's going to work phones. He's going to make calls.
Is he a baseball fan?
He is. Yeah, he's a baseball fan. I haven't gotten into deep knowledge of who he grew up rooting for, but
he's a Philly guy.
You tell me.
Maybe he's a Phillies, which is fine. I got no problem with the Phillies.
Yeah.
I'm a Mets fan. I hate the Cardinals.
I could wax poetic about 80s Braves players.
You are a Braves guy?
That's how I grew. And in baseball was my first love. Actually worked 1 year for the Mudcats and then came back to the Canes. Being outside and hot is a lot in these summers.
Oh, my gosh. So. Yeah, well, it is a time. By the real quick about this, do you, at some point, do you have to engage the people who own what I do? People who pay my salary own the Durham Bulls.
Yeah.
At some point, does that conversation have to happen?
Yeah, and a ton of respect for the Goodman family, and what the Bulls have built in Durham is phenomenal. And yes, that would definitely be something that's engaged, and would only do it if they were on board.
Okay, Doug Warf. Final thing for you, president of your Carolina Hurricanes, at Doug Warf on Twitter. Sportsbook.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we? What? I know the plan was to have one inside PNC Arena. My guess is that this falls at least partially on your desk.
Yeah,
I'm sure, right? So
small percentage.
What? Where are we with an in-arena sports book, or is there something out of the arena that's going to be adjacent to it? What is the plan?
I think the plans are always a little bit fluid, but I think the thought process right now is it would be in phase one of the development outside the arena.
Okay.
And a lot of that is on partnerships. I think you only want to do a sports book if you can do it right. Sure. A lot of people have found that their phone works really well. So you only want to do a sports book in a place that people come to if you feel like you can make that an engaging space where people want to go watch games and be part of something. So I think Tom's looking at it the right way. I think he's done a lot of research on what's worked and what hasn't from a sportsbook standpoint, but it is in phase one of outside arena development.
I'm going to ask you one more quick question, then I want you to essentially, maybe there's something I didn't get to that you want to bring up. When is the first time you think we will see something that either is happening within the arena or something that is happening within the development of the area around the arena?
It's a great question. I think we are trying to be as ready as possible. As you know, and probably have sat through some of these meetings, there are a lot of parties that have to sign off on some of these things. So, the Centennial Authority got their part started last week. And I think the biggest part of that is now pricing out, okay, we've seen some renderings, we've seen some things we like. The Centennial Authority has to have their vote. We have to look at it from our standpoint of what we're working on. And then it starts to price out, okay, what can we do with everything that we saw? I think the goal is that, especially inside the arena, is that next summer we start projects. I think the challenge on that, some of the stuff that would happen next summer is make space for other things to happen. So when people see those big renderings, it's not like everything's happening next summer. That's a 3 or 4 year plan.
Right. It's not a Lego.
And next summer might not be the most sexy of those items, but that is the goal, is for next summer for these things to start happening inside the building.